Okay, I've removed the nylon stop so I don't damage it from heat. And these mounts have rubber in, so I'm wrapping them with soaking wet rags. Then I can do my welding. Okay, so I turned this around so that it's a little easier to weld. To move these holes closer to the pivot, I need to weld in the opposite side of the hole. So we'll go ahead and do that. Okay. Then what I'll do is I'll file the opposite side. Okay, I think I'm going to weld in a little bit more. Now I'm doing this from experience. If you've never done this before, you may want to fit and take it apart again and fit and take it apart and so on. But just from me repairing numerous ones, I know I need to have actually a little bit more fill there. So okay, I've taken my grinder and ground those welds flat so that we have proper mounting. Then I'm going to take a file and file the opposite side from where I welded. Now you really don't want to use a drill to do this, because if you use a drill, you'll take away the weld, and you really don't want to do that. You want to take away a little bit of the weld, but not a lot of it. I'm going to use a drill in there first, though, the smaller one, just so I can get my rat tail file in the hole. Okay, another view of what we're doing. This is part of the transmission, and this is an original old regulator frame, and those bosses fit tight in those three holes. So we're basically moving this over like that. So the new hole location must be this diameter. So we're gonna grab a drill bit just to use for sizing how I file those new holes. New hole locations, I should say. There we go. So when I get through filing, I should be able to get this into the hole. Okay, now that I've filed the hole sides over closer to the pivot, I can actually take that drill bit and make those round without fear of losing my weld material. Maybe I'll start with a little bit smaller drill bit and enlarge, but that one's nice and round now. And I'll make them all like that. Then we can assemble. Okay, now since I've relocated the holes, this bolt shoulder is going to rise up on the metal and tend to hit the gear. So what we want to do is grind off just a little bit of this shoulder of each bolt. Okay, our next step is to put these nylons back in. Now, they're loose, so they do stick through. So the way to take care of that is just to heat up a screwdriver hot and mash that, so we melt that down. And sometimes they're so broken off that they don't even stick through, in which case you need to get a hold of me. I've got replacements. So we got two that stick through enough, and we'll melt those down to where they need to be. I've got a donor old screwdriver here because you don't want to heat up a good screwdriver. It will change the hardness. There we go. Now those nylons are locked in. And the next step is a nylon on the gear. And the nylon's missing. There's one there, but the other one is missing. And so I need to hunt up a nylon. Okay, this was the washer that was there, which is a little sloppy, plus it's very thin. And this is a thicker washer, and as you can see when it goes on there, that shoulder, it'll be closer to the shoulder length, which will keep this gear from slopping around so much. So this is ready for assembly. So I'm going to put the transmission on first, now that I have these nylons in. And I've ground off the shoulder of the bolts a bit. And as you can see, it's closer to the pivot point, which means closer to the gear itself. Okay, got this assembled. This limiting plate, however, is missing its bushing. So I found another one in my part source. It also has a little nylon that needs to be in there. So now we're ready for the assembly. We want to lube this good right here. And what I always do is mention to the customer to, once he has this installed, to grease these teeth. I don't grease them beforehand just because it makes the installation awful greasy, and it's better to grease once this is bolted into the door. So now we've got our guide plate. And got to be very careful. I'm using a huge impact wrench here because my other one has a dead battery, so I've got to be very careful. And not torque it down with that baby or I'll strip it out. Okay, we're testing this bench test on the floor. And we've got to go. So, this, when I fix them, I guarantee them forever. So this will never have a problem. We still have to put the spring on and our stop, and then we're done. Now, when using the newer gear, off a newer type of regulator, which is this type of regulator, when using the new gear off this type of regulator, the gear offset right here is a lot less. And that makes it so that the stop will not function, the stop that bolts on here. So, the way to take care of that is to cut off this much of this nylon. That way the stop will function, because otherwise it won't function because of the offset. So I'll just hack that off with a hacksaw. Okay, to put the spring on, it helps to have the arm rotated. There we go. Then it's much easier to put that on. And there we go. Done deal.